Okay. Good evening, everyone, and Shavua Tov to everyone. We have a very, very special guest today. We have two past presidents that served Beth El for many years in different committees. Let me introduce each one of them for about 30 seconds. John Abosch. John Abosch is a longtime member of Beth El Congregation. He is a past congregation president, member of the Budget and Finance Committee, and a board member. John has been very active in our community on boards and chairing committees at Levendale, Lifebridge, Northwest Hospital, Israel Bonds, Morris Kassoff Lodge of Bnei B'rith, Baltimore Estate Planning Council, and GBMC Hospital Auxiliary Board. He continues to volunteer at Gilchrist, and John is the co-founder of Katz Abosch CPA firm. He and Susan have been married for 59 years with children and grandchildren who are also part of our Beth El family.
Are you serious?
Alan Dorenfeld. Alan Dorenfeld was born and raised in Baltimore. He attended City College, going on to graduate from Milford High School to the University of Maryland, where he received his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering, and then later on, his Master's in Structural Engineering from George Washington University. In addition to his engineering work, Alan worked in the paper industry, was the Beth El Director of Development, and Executive Director of Israel Bonds, Maryland. He has been on the boards of Beth El, Israel Bonds, Jewish Museum, and Friends of the IDF. He has been married to Sharon for 58 years and loves the connection they, their children, and grandchildren have with Beth El. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to divide this talk today into 5 different areas. The 5 areas will be background questions about their education, then about their profession, their connection to Beth El, their families, and general thoughts. It is my pleasure now to bring John and Alan, and we will start asking you the questions. And after the questions that we're going to do now, please put on a chat anything that you want to ask Alan and John, and Becca will read them at the end of the interview. Also, if you want to speak, you can raise your hand and Becca will allow you to speak. We'll unmute you. Okay, John and Alan, let's start. Probably whoever wants to answer that. Where did you grow up, John?
Well, I was born in England. Came to this country when I was 6 years old, and lived in various places in Baltimore City. Most important, I was near Beth El. I was on Edgewood Road, about 2 blocks away from Beth El. Then moved to the county, and I live now in the county at the Quarry. But I've been in Maryland most of my life, probably about 72 years or so. I've been in Maryland.
Alan?
I grew up in Baltimore, went to City College and Milford Mill High School, and grew up in what I'll say the extended Forest Park area, about 6 blocks from the old Beth El at Hilton and Darthan Roads. And it was a great experience growing up in the city. Went to local city schools, and it was a terrific way to grow up and make a lot of friends.
Wonderful. Where did you both meet?
We met probably in the hallways of Beth El as we got expelled from our Hebrew school classes. Me more so than John, but we did meet at Beth El in the Hebrew school, and we were friends, especially in the children's congregation that used to be held every Shabbat morning, every Saturday morning at Beth El.
John?
Yeah, we knew each other, but we really became very close friends in later years. Probably in the last 30 years, we became very close friends. But we were probably just out of diapers when we met each other at Beth El.
Interesting. So, do you have any memories from your bar mitzvah, Alan?
Well, I think the greatest experience was being taught the our bar mitzvah information by Reverend Rabinowitz. He taught all the youngsters their Haftarah, their maftirs, and then being bar mitzvah with Rabbi Agus and Cantor Hammerman. I was bar mitzvah in 1958, and that was a lovely experience and just drew us, the family, closer into Beth El.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Reverend Rabinowitz very well. He seemed so old at the time, although he was probably in his late 40s, early 50s. So it makes us ancient at this point, but he was terrific. My bar mitzvah was at Beth El, happened to be on my 13th birthday, the actual day. But he taught us well and prepared us well for our bar mitzvahs.
Let's move to a different area and tell us a little bit about your professions. And can you, John, tell us about your career as a professional, please?
Sure. I went to University of Baltimore, stayed local, got my degree in accounting, became a CPA, and started co-formed our accounting firm, Katz Abosch. We started it in October of 1969, and the firm is still in existence today. I am fully retired, but my partner, Alvin Katz, and I built the firm together, and that's my background.
How many employees are there now?
I think now they're about 95.
Impressive. John, thank you. Alan, tell us about your career.
Yeah, my career has taken many turns left and right. I started off as a structural engineer working for the U.S. Coast Guard, worked for a local engineering firm called Century Engineering, which you'll see on I-83 traveling north around Padonia Road. I was in the engineering about 11 years, went to the paper industry as management for about 20 years. And then John Abosch convinced me and wound up hiring me with the approval of the board to come back to Beth El and be the director of development to create some needed fundraising programs for the synagogue. Excuse me. And then in the late 2006, I joined Israel Bonds as the executive director for the state of Maryland, and had a great experience selling Israel Bonds and working directly for the state of Israel. And it was a very gratifying opportunity.
Wow.
All that engineering studies and education prepared me to sell Israel Bonds, as you can imagine.
And are these different jobs and careers prepared you to become presidents?
Actually, in my opinion, it's the other way around. I believe being president of Beth El prepared me to do a better job, especially working at Beth El after I was president and being in the Jewish community, selling Israel Bonds on behalf of the state of Israel. So I think we got, at least I got a lot more out of being president that I then utilized from the experience as president going forward into different professions.
John?
Well, I would say in my case, I was in public accounting, met with business owners, met with people every day, learned their opportunities, learned their problems, helped them, and it enabled me to be a better listener and hopefully prepared me for being president of Beth El.
So, gentlemen, in what organizational boards are you involved? Tell us about your volunteerism then and now.
Okay, well, I was involved in a number of outside charities. I was on the board of Levendale. I became chairman of Levendale. I was on the board and still am the advisory board of Israel Bonds and was chairman of the state of Maryland. I was on the LifeBridge board. I was chairman of the audit and compliance division, or committee rather, of LifeBridge. I was past president of the Morris Case-Off Lodge. Professionally, I was president of the Baltimore Estate Planning Council. I've been involved in a number of outside activities. And actually, right now, I'm doing something that is totally out of my past experience. And I volunteer at Gilchrist. And I go every Thursday. I spend several hours there, meet with patients, meet with families. And I find that very, very rewarding. I'm also currently on the GBMC Auxiliary Board representing Gilchrist. So those are some of the things that I've been involved with.
John, you left out the most important board you've ever been on in your entire life, and that's the condo board.
I thought you were going to say Beth El.
No,
yeah, I've been on a number of condo boards here where I live. I was president of the Master Association of the Green Spring Quarry for several years, and Alan's right.
Yeah. So my involvement started with Beth El in the mid-'80s, and that was a great experience to get first involved at the synagogue. And I'd say all the Beth El future leaders all started on the board one way or another, became officers, and then ascended in different capacities. But being on the board, I actually I was asked to be on the board since 1983. You see a lot of changes over that almost 50-year period. And it's been magnificent experience to see how Beth El has grown to where it is today. I'm still involved with Israel Bonds on the Leadership Council. I just recently timed out of the Jewish Museum Board and still currently involved in the FIDF Board, which in the last year has been called upon to support Israel more than ever. So it's been a great experience to be involved in the community, but also have a lifelong experience with the synagogue.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to another area. Thank you, gentlemen. Your Beth El connection. What were the circumstances under which you became members of Beth El Congregation?
Well, I went to Hebrew school at Beth El. That was my start, was bar mitzvah at Beth El. And when we got married and we had children, we joined Beth El for the Hebrew school, and our children had been bar mitzvah, and our daughter was bat mitzvah at Beth El. All three of our children had been married by Beth El clergy, and our grandchildren are very much also involved. So Beth El has been an integral part of our life for many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it was really a simple answer to that question. Living within a 10 or 15-minute walk of the old Beth El, my parents made the decision that they as a family would join Beth El because it was walking distance to the school, to the Hebrew school, Shabbat services, whatever. And it was a natural fit. The neighborhood was very very involved at the synagogue, and there were quite a few neighbors who were very much involved at Beth El. Excuse me. So it worked out very well.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell us, please, about your presidency? What did it mean to you? How was it at the time? John, you start, please.
Well, it was an incredible experience. I found everybody extremely cooperative. I must say it was stress-free. Everything was very cohesive. It took a lot of time, but I enjoyed every minute of it, and it was a privilege to work with the officers, the board, the members, and certainly the clergy and professional staff. It was a real honor for me to do that.
Mm-hmm. Alan?
The opportunity to be president of Beth El was a wonderful learning experience that began when I first became an officer as secretary, and then moved through the different chairs. And through that entire time, had the wonderful experience of being mentored by the existing presidents at that time, starting with Sidney Freeman, Max Mendelson, Lou Glick, David Yumkus, Elliot Marenblum, Albert Katz, who lives in Florida. And it was a great way to learn about the synagogue, to be involved in the synagogue. And when I was fortunate enough to be asked to be president, it was what prepared me to be president. And I still maintain a lot of friendships with the people who mentored me through that time. Also, it was a wonderful experience being president with Rabbi Loeb. And there's not a better mentor around for anything better than Rabbi Loeb. And we had some wonderful discussions, some really nice arguments, but nevertheless, it was all about Beth El and making it where Beth El is today.
So do you remember one big accomplishment that you can share with us, Alan, and then we'll go to John?
Sure. The concept of a capital endowment campaign had never been approached at Beth El. So Beth El was started in 1948, and here it was, I became president in 1995. And at that time, it was a constant struggle year by year, balancing the budget, raising the necessary funds. And the building itself needed expansion, needed the capital resources to build something like the Gorin Chapel. Many people may not remember, but there was a time when there was no Gorin Chapel, there was no second floor administrative wing, and there was no end building in the school. And all that was accomplished in the 95 through 98 capital endowment campaign. And that was really the highlight of my presidency, introducing the concept of the capital and endowment campaign, generating the capital funds first, and then the endowment that began as a result of that campaign. And all the credit goes to the membership, because the membership are the people that made it happen. They stepped up, they did what they wanted, what they were able to do in order to generate the funds that enabled the campaign goal to be well exceeded. And we were able to do the capital improvements that were dramatically needed, and also begin the funding of the endowment.
Yeah. President?
I'm sorry, did you ask me something?
It broke up.
Yeah. What was your biggest accomplishment as a president, as a past president? Yeah.
Well, several things that probably three, I would say. Many ideas I got came from congregants. And one of our congregants, Dr. David Miller, approached me and suggested that Beth El have a director of development. We had never had a director of development before. And Dr. Miller indicated that he would underwrite it, that if we did not raise enough money the first year to pay the salary of the development director, he would pay the difference. And so we took his suggestion, we took it to the board approved, and we hired our first development director, my friend and colleague, Alan Dorenfeld. That was an easy decision because Alan did an incredible job. Two other things that we did. I think someone else suggested that we should have a director of adult education. And what we did was we hired Alan Lipsitz of blessed memory. I believe he was maybe part-time at first, but paved the way to have an incredible adult education program. And so that was something else I'm very proud of. And thirdly, while I was president, I worked with Rabbi Loeb and the clergy, and we made a separate section in the Beth El Memorial Park for interdenominational families, families that married a non-Jewish person so that they could be buried together at Beth El. So those are three things that I'm very proud of.
Yeah. And I also remember one more thing, if I may say, is that you actually, under your leadership, we named the Hebrew school the Berman Lipovsky Hebrew School. Do you remember that?
Well, I remember very well. You were an integral part of that. You and I went out one evening to see Malcolm and Sandy Berman. They were very welcoming. We asked them if they would establish if they would make a significant contribution to the Hebrew school. We named it the Berman Lipovsky Hebrew School. They were very close with you, meaning Malcolm and Sandy, very close with Dr. Lipovsky as well. And very quickly, without hesitation, they agreed to underwrite it. And that was the foundation for building the Hebrew school where it is today.
Right. It was an incredible evening, wonderful evening.
Hey, one other thing I want to mention is that one of the best things of my presidency was that John was my first vice president. So we got to work together very closely. And while the campaign started at the beginning of my presidency, it ended in John's first year of his presidency. So there was a lot of overlap. We worked together very well in generating what was necessary to make that campaign extremely successful. One other interesting story is that when we were organizing the campaign, we needed a campaign chair. And I met with Rabbi Loeb, we talked about it, and one name came to mind, Mickey Steinberg. And Mickey, much to his distress, had just lost the primary as the governor of the state of Maryland. So Rabbi Loeb called Mickey into his office one day. Mickey came and I was there. And I said to Mickey, I want you to know I'm very sorry you lost the primary election. However, I'm glad you lost it because I want you to be the chairman of the Capital Endowment Campaign. He agreed, and he was a tremendous asset to the congregation, leading the campaign to exceed its goal by over $2 million.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, I remember that time. It was a very exciting period for us, for Beth El. Also, what about the introduction of the first annual appeal that happened in 2000? Could you share that, Alan?
Yeah. When I joined the synagogue as director of development, I spent a lot of time talking to other directors of development and other synagogues, organizations. And Beth El was the only entity that did not have an annual appeal. And the annual appeal was really needed to bridge the gap between income and expenses so that we were able to balance our budget going forward every year. And so we introduced it in the first annual appeal was in 2000. We worked very hard, a lot of volunteers, great effort, and we raised $200,000, which in 2000 was a lot of money. The current budget year that just ended last May, I believe the annual appeal exceeded $750,000. So that shows tremendous growth of the annual appeal and the increased support by the membership of Beth El.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Let's move to another area of expertise. What does Beth El mean to your families, to you?
Well, I'll be glad to answer that. Beth El is a spiritual home for Susan and me and our family, our children. Our children actually went to a Hebrew day school. Excuse me, our grandchildren, not our children. Our children went to public school, and of course went through Beth El Hebrew School. Our grandchildren started at Beth El Hebrew School, and then went to Beth Tefillah and graduated at Beth Tefillah, but they were bar and bat mitzvah at Beth El. Beth El is a very comfortable place for us to be. Susan and I can sit together, we worship together. We are thrilled with the clergy, the professional staff, the lay leaders. Everybody gets along well together, and we feel very comfortable with Beth El, and it's our spiritual home.
Mm-hmm.
So from my aspect, I agree a lot with what John said. It really is the center of Jewish life. And our family has had many, many life cycle events. I just made some notes. We've had between children and grandchildren, 5 b'nai mitzvah, baby namings, bris, weddings, and even a funeral. And the warmth of the clergy, the way that the synagogue has been there whenever we needed support from the clergy or the membership or whatever. Beth El's always been there and continues to be there. And it's a place where we're very comfortable going into. It's like coming home every time we walk in the front doors. And it is, it's where we want to stay connected to and see flourish for our children and for our grandchildren.
How many generations have you are in Beth El from your family?
Yeah, well, my parents joined, Sharon and I, then our 3 children, and now our grandchildren. So it's 4 generations at Beth El. And ironically, I'm still sitting in the same high holiday seats in the Offit Auditorium, row K, same seats since the building opened in 1961. Mm-hmm. So we still go to the services and sit in the same seats. It's like it's the only place we know where to sit.
Mm-hmm. John?
It's funny, I didn't know it, but we're also in row K. But we're in the main sanctuary, but we're even in the same row, just in different rooms. We have 3 generations that call Beth El their home. Susan and I, our children, and our grandchildren, and it's the center of our Jewish life. And we're all very, very comfortable, and Beth El has great significance, spiritual significance to us and our family.
And your children are also in leadership roles at Beth El, is that correct?
Go ahead, Alan.
Good. Our daughter Amy's on the board, and I think that's where it goes. Yeah, and it's warming to see other members of the synagogue, other members of the family participating within the synagogue, and It's a place where if you want to be involved, you can find something. There's always committees, there's always activities, there's always involvement that's available. Now, you also want to mention the early days when our children were young. Sharon was very much involved in cooking lunches for the Shabbat lunches, working in the Hanukkah store at the end of the year. And so it wasn't just me involved, but Sharon has been involved too.
And Susan was on the school committee, I remember, and was involved in our different committees, right? John?
That's right.
I think my wife, Susan, was, yes.
Yeah.
I think she was. My daughter is not involved directly in Beth El, but she's involved locally with the Associated. She's involved in a number of activities. And our kids have been to Israel quite a number of times. Susan and I have been a couple of times. We took a trip recently with Beth El to Eastern Europe, and we've enjoyed our travels with Beth El.
Let's talk about general thoughts that you have. What do you see as some challenges of synagogues today? I'm referring to finding new leadership, getting new members, fundraising, children enrolling in Hebrew schools, etc. What do you see as leaders, past leaders, today's challenges as opposed to when were you the president?
You know, I think in every era, there's always challenges. They might just be a little different from time to time. I'd say today, the biggest challenges are educating our youngsters into Jewish culture, Hebrew, and learning what the holidays, the services mean. It's such a busy schedule that our grandchildren, children, all through the ages are exposed to, and it's just finding the right time. You know, when we think back, John and I, we went to Hebrew school 3 times a week, 2 hours each time. So that's 6 hours a week of Hebrew school education. And while we joke somewhat about being in trouble from time to time, at the end, we came out with a lot of good education, a lot of good background, and we know what the holidays are about and the meaning of being Jewish. And sometimes that gets lost a little bit in the busy schedules that everybody, families, youngsters have to follow or do follow these days. I think financial, a lot of the synagogues are having trouble. I'm so glad to see Beth El is not one of those synagogues, because of the hard work of many lay leaders, budget and finance committee members, and so many people that who worked hard over the last 30, 40 years to build the financial base of the synagogue, the endowment of the synagogue. You know, we've had 2 capital campaigns. The second one was in 2016, and that was another very successful campaign that added a lot of money to the endowment. And today the endowment is very healthy. And that's going to enable the synagogue from a financial standpoint to be very strong. But we do have problems. We have problems with attendance at religious services. We have problems with making minions during the week. And I think that is going to be ongoing. That's just a couple areas.
John?
It's a different world. 2024 is different than 57, 58, 59, when we were in Hebrew school. Things are different. Many families, both spouses work. There are so many diversions, whether it be soccer, basketball, baseball, so many different things that unfortunately religion is competing with all of these activities that didn't exist as much when we were younger. And families are making choices, and in many cases, Hebrew school is not at the top of the list. Fortunately, it's on the list, but it's not at the top of the list. So there are many more challenges today, and families resist 3 days a week. Now I believe we're down to, I think, 1 day a week, I think. And it's just a different world, a different culture, so much competition. And in the old days, we walked to Hebrew school. Today, probably nobody walks to Beth El because of where communities are located. So it's just a different mindset, different culture. And the challenges of Beth El are no different than other Hebrew schools and other congregations. Fortunately, we're doing well, and our membership has remained pretty stable. Other synagogues can't say that, but there's a lot of competition, and that's what we have to deal with today.
One other area which I think a lot of synagogues are concerned about is the leadership, who will go forward. And at Beth El, we're really fortunate. We've got some very talented young people coming up the ranks on the board and also as officers. And we have developed a process of great leadership, great people who are ascending to the different important roles as lay leaders in the synagogue. And that's really healthy, especially when you match strong leadership with wonderful clergy. It creates the teamwork which is needed in addition to the professional staff to go forward into the future. And Beth El's been really fortunate since the late 40s, early 50s to have those three areas very, very talented and very dedicated. And we have those officers today, and I know we're going to have those officers tomorrow.
Dr. Board, I would be remiss if I did not say this. When I became president, I relied very heavily on Alan Dorenfeld. He preceded me, and there were many times that I would call him for advice, and he always gave me very, very sage advice, always directed me in the right direction, and his help and his tutoring was immeasurable. And so I'm very grateful for that, and we forged a wonderful friendship since. And we speak to each other almost every day. But he was a big help to me in helping me chart the job that I took as president.
Ask you two questions into one. Where do you see Beth El in 5 to 10 years? And where do you see the Park Heights Synagogue corridor in 5 to 10 years?
Well, I would say the corridor, 5 to 10 years. I think Beth El is in a very good position. I think that the area is stable. In my opinion, 5 to 10 years, I really don't know that it's going to be any different than it is today. And where I see Beth El in the future, I think Beth El has been able to remain stable with new young families due to the outstanding clergy and professional staff we have at Beth El. I think our clergy and professional staff has attracted new members, encouraged current members to stay and become more active, and we've been extremely fortunate. And I think going in the future, one of the challenges we'll have is to bring in new professionals, new clergy. As our current staff retires, we have to maintain the quality of the clergy and the professional staff, and that, I think, is going to be our challenge to do that and maintain our membership.
Hey, yo, I think that in 5 to 10 years, Beth El is going to be the premier center of Jewish education with our adult education program that you currently lead, with the Soul Center as directed by Rabbi Sorokin. We're offering so many educational opportunities to not only Beth El members, but to the entire community. And I think that is a strengthening position that Beth El will continue to be at the leadership of adult education. And we made great strides over the last 5 to 10 years. And I really sincerely believe over the next 5 to 10 years, we will continue to make that many educational advances to expand the educational opportunities.
If I may add to that is, I think, strong infant toddler program and preschool and Hebrew school also attract young families into our community, which was a very important thing to start in the past years. Mr. Lipavsky started the preschool, and later on we started the infant toddler, which gives strong foundation for the future.
As you know, if we had room for 20 more cribs, we'd fill them up in a day, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, gentlemen, you sent us some pictures that I wanted you to speak about, photos. And I would like Rebecca now to please put them on the screen, and each one of you can speak about his photo.
Well, the top left is my wonderful wife, and the bottom left is my wife. And in fact, even the one in the middle is my wife. She's my rock. She's been behind what I've done. She's been very tolerant. As Alan knows, when you're president of a synagogue like Beth El, you're out all the time. And she's been extremely tolerant and understanding. And that is the highlight of my life, as well as my kids, but the older highlight of my life.
Wonderful. Next picture, please.
That is one of my sons who lives locally. We have a son that lives in Florida, and so we see him a few times a year, my wife and my daughter and my favorite son-in-law. The gentleman on the left is my favorite son-in-law. Truth be told, he's my only son-in-law, but he's still my favorite son-in-law. And I don't know when that was taken. That may have been when I don't know. I don't know when that was taken. And on the right is Rabbi Loeb of blessed memory. I believe I received an award. I can't even remember what it was, but it was for a Hebrew, I think a day school, Orthodox day school that gave me an award, and Rabbi Loeb was kind enough to speak at that event. That was might have been my outgoing speech as president of Beth El, or incoming, I'm not sure, but probably outgoing speech as president of Beth El. I think that's my favorite son-in-law again. And that is one of the, Alan, you want to talk about that one? I think that's good.
This obviously was taken a few years ago, but it's Sharon and Susan, John and I. And as best as we can tell, it's probably about 25 years ago. And it was taken in Aruba. And we're fortunate, we've been back to Aruba together, I don't know, John, 6, 7, 8 times. I can't remember. But this was in the early days. The reason I know it's the Marriott in Aruba, because they still use the same striped towels. Right. That's a picture of me and my dad. I give Dad for credit for taking the family to Beth El back in 1953. And so we used to go to every Sunday morning, Beth El Men's Club, Sunday morning breakfast. And that's when the men's club would have a weekly speaker. And those were very fun years. Now, this goes back to, by the way, that's Rabbi Loeb on the far right. That's Abba Eben in the middle. And Sharon and I, obviously a few years ago, but it kind of speaks to the fact that we've been involved in leadership many, many years ago. And that was probably in the mid 80s, I'm guessing. He was a speaker at a special event right after Rabbi Loeb became senior rabbi.
Mhm.
Rabbi Loeb asked when he was reaching retirement if I would share his retirement weekend. And I said, only if I can have Rena Janet do it with me. Rena was an incredible young lady, brilliant, great leader, great organizer. And she and I had the honor of sharing Rabbi Loeb's entire retirement weekend. She was the strength, the brains behind the entire. I did whatever she told me to do. And it was a remarkable weekend. I hope some of you watching may remember it. I mentioned Mickey Steinberg. In the early years, late 80s, early 90s, the men's club used to have a man of the year. And Mickey Steinberg was the man of the year. Sharon and I were involved in the committee in doing the organizational work. And the guest speaker was Governor Cuomo, not the one who left office disgraced. This is his father. So this goes back a long time. And obviously Governor Cuomo and Lieutenant Governor Steinberg were associates, knew each other. And he was thrilled to come to Beth El to speak for Mickey's honor. That might be it. Yep.
Wonderful. So let me ask Rebecca if she can bring a few questions if people had them written, please. Are you guys seeing them on the chat?
I do
We
not
don't see anything
as of now, but if anyone wants to like raise their hand, I'll switch to gallery view, and I'll be able to see you and unmute you.
Okay.
All right, Sandy, you're unmuted.
I don't have any questions other than, can you clone yourselves for each of the next generations? You both are such wonderful gifts to all of us, both personally as well as in Beth El, and we thank you for all this time that you've given over the decades to all of us and to Beth El. So thank you.
Well
Thank you.
said, Sandy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Becca.
Sorry.
Okay.
If I could say something about Mitzvah 613, which I feel was a really important part of Beth El's coming together. It brought everyone, absolutely everyone who had anything to do, from the preschool to the seniors. And Alan, I worked with you on that, and it was such a joy. So
Yeah,
I'll just remember that.
I'll just briefly explain that Mitzvah 613 was a project that was originally, well, there was a sofer, Rabbi Moshe Druin, who used to come and review the Torahs at the synagogue. And one day he came and met with Rabbi Loeb and suggested that Beth El write a brand new Torah. Well, at that time, Beth El did not have any of its own Torahs. All the Torahs, and there were about 20 of them, were all purchased. And Beth El had never written their own Torah. So this was a project that was very, very important to Rabbi Loeb to have Beth El write its own Torah. And it was a project that we started when I was a director of development. The chairs of this magnificent program were Rena Janet, of blessed memory, and Irv Sekulow, who had become a very close friend with a great background in organization and fundraising. And long story short is that we enabled every segment of the congregation to fill in a letter in the actual Torah. And there were 1,500 letters that were either dedicated, different segments of the Torah were dedicated, letters, words, sentences, parshas, prayers, everything you can think of. And there's a display in the hallway. We have to update it. It's 20 some years. It's actually, we just had our 20th anniversary. It was dedicated in 2004, but it was a entire project that every aspect of the congregation got involved in. Young children, seniors, everyone.
Yeah. I may ask your children to be on screen and say a word. I see Debbie, Jamie, Amy. Can you say a few words to your parents? I know that it wasn't planned, but I see you, so can you unmute yourself? Okay, guys, can you say something to your parents, please?
We just want to say we're very proud of our dads. They've served Beth El for so long, and they've been wonderful examples for us, and we're so proud of them.
Okay.
And we're just so happy that my dad and my mom, John and Susan, and all of our families are just so close. In fact, Debbie, Jamie, and us, and 7 of our closest couple friends are vacationing together in Mexico right now. So we're having a watch party.
And some of them are watching now.
And we
That's great.
So this international, huh?
Can you
International.
say something in
We
Spanish?
love you.
It's wonderful.
You guys do.
Love you too.
Thank you for joining us.
Congratulations. Well done. Adios.
Yes.
Becca, anyone else has a question before we close?
Can I just say something also?
Yes.
Alan and I got our foundation at Beth El. And I think we were in the same class. I'm not sure. But we had some fabulous teachers and role models going back. Dr. Fury was director of education or principal. Mrs. Lesser, Cantor Hyman Paris, Mrs. Shore, Irv Epstein, and Doris Cohn was a teacher of mine. And I don't think Eyal knows this, but she actually taught our daughter Debbie in Hebrew school. At that time, she was Doris Fould. But my daughter was asked to bring a Hebrew book in, and she brought a book in, and it was signed by Doris Cohen. And Doris Fould asked where she got it from, and it turned out, we found out that she was a teacher of ours. So we had a great foundation at Beth El, and we owe a great deal of gratitude to Beth El for teaching us.
Yep. I know both of you were great students. You brought the report cards when we prepared for this interview to the office. You got wonderful grades when you were in Hebrew school. I saw it.
You must have been looking at somebody else's report card. I'm ashamed to say. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other aspect is that while John and I are very close, there are many other Beth El past presidents who have formed close relationships with other past presidents. In fact, we even have 2 of them whose children got married, right? Rich Hollander and Michael Steinhardt. So this kind of relationship is due to the deep dedication of all the past presidents and the friendships that have been developed and nurtured over the many years. And we're all pleased whenever we get a past president's dinner. We come together, and it's like a fraternity where we come together and enjoy each other's company. John and I, Susan and Sharon, have been fortunate to travel all over for 30 some years together, from Alaska to Australia to Israel to Dubai. And it's been a great friendship. We hope it goes on for many more years.
That's great. That's great. This is wonderful. Final word if you guys want to, because we have 3 minutes. Something funny?
Something funny?
Yeah. About
Let's
maybe
see.
something with Rabbi Loeb, maybe.
You mean what I told you?
No, driving with him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that one. Okay. Alan, you can speak better because I don't remember ever driving with Rabbi Loeb. I think I was warned to drive myself.
Yeah. Well, I remember one episode, I was working at Beth El. Rabbi Loeb came to my office and said, "What are you doing tonight?" I said, "Just go home, have dinner with Sharon and the kids." He said, "Would you like to come to an opera?" I said, "Yeah, where?" "New York." So I called Sharon. I said, "I'll be home late." So I left with Rabbi Loeb around 4:00. We drove to New York. He had a parking place in the Metropolitan Garage. And all the way up, because I don't know operas, he knows every one of them. So all the way up, he's telling me all about the opera. And I'm telling him to keep his eyes on the road. And the more he talks, the more he's looking at me and not watching where he's going. And he's not traveling at the speed limit. And when the opera's over, we're the first ones out of the opera house, in the car, back on the road. I think we got home like around 2:00 in the morning. It was a great experience. I loved being with him. He was a good friend, great mentor, brilliant mind, and dearly miss him.
Yeah, I just want to add to that that I was the only one that he let me drive him back from New York. You know why? Because I drove like him.
Right.
All right.
Something else.
This is very interesting. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a hand to John and Alan. Thank you so much for wonderful storytelling to us. And also, if you guys please join us for our next My Story, which is going to be actually next Sunday on the 15th, where Dr. Ed Mishner will interview Dr. Michael Schultz in a conversation. So it will be exactly a week from now at this time. In addition to that, if you guys are interested to listen to a Parsha class next Saturday at 9:00, I will lead the discussion at 9 a.m. And if you want to learn something about Zionism, it's going to be Sunday, a week from today at 9:00, also at Beth El, where I will present the topic Zionism from, it's like Zionism 101, where it started and where is it today. I want to thank you again, John and Alan. I want to thank Ellen Marks, who is behind the scene, but helped us to prepare this wonderful interview. And of course, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to Rebecca, who is going to live for 2 weeks to Liverpool. Safe travel. Good evening, everyone. Have a great week.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for inviting John and I. We enjoyed it a lot. It was terrific. We enjoyed kibitzing around before, and it was good. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Shalom, everyone.